Hi, I'm Phil. This is Phil with Phacts, and today we are making wine. Yes, today we're making wine. Why are we making wine today? One, because I haven't done a video on it yet. Two, the actual recipe, I feel honey might just be the wrong thing for it. It's gonna give it the wrong kind of sweetness. And three, it's fun. Why not do it? It's a good time. So today's wine is Wyvern Venom wine. It's Wyvern Venom because it's going to be little spicy, little citrusy, little sweet. So think about that for a second. We're going to make a wine that is spicy, sweet, and citrusy. It's going to have a nice balance of flavors. With that said, let's get going. We're going to take our sanitizer, food grade safe. You can use any one you want. I use Star San. There'll be a link in the description for Star San. It's just the one I prefer to use. You're going to need 2 to 3 red chili peppers. You can use the green ones if you want. I have a feeling that if I ferment the green ones, I'm going to have a grassy tasting wine. I haven't done it. I don't really know. I just felt better about using the red ones. I'm going to use 1 orange, 2 limes, 1 lemon. I'm choosing this ratio because I feel like if I put too much lemon and then ferment it, it's going to taste like Pledge. And nobody wants to drink Pledge. That just seems like a bad time to make. You're going to need water. I'm using regular tap water from my sink. You can use any kind of water you feel comfortable using. If it tastes good to you, use that. I wouldn't use anything that's too pricey or like sports waters or anything that has things added to it. Regular water is fine, spring water is fine, use what you like to use. We got dried cranberries. I got 1 ounce right here. I got 2 cups of water that I heated and then soaked 3 tea bags in. I removed the tea bags. That was the only cooking I had to do today for this recipe, so I figured why bore you with making tea? I'm pretty sure you can do that. We have granulated white sugar. You can use sugar in the raw if you really want. This works just well. And then I have about a cup of water. I have half a packet of Red Star wine yeast. And we're just going to hydrate them. This way by the time I'm ready to get everything going, they're going to be nice and awake and they're just going to go right to work. That's about as complicated as that has to be. There's not a lot of parts to this video. I think the most work we're going to have to do is cutting the produce. So why don't we get started on that? Alright, let's start with the citrus. Got our limes, lemon, orange. When you think zest, 9 out of 10 times people jump right onto these things. A microplane. I thought about it. If I zest all of this, put it into here, and then ferment the product, it's probably going to sink to the bottom at the end and not be in our way. Or it's going to float around, and I'm going to have to wrap this several times to get all the zest out, because it's going to be small enough to go right through the airlock. So we are going to just cut it off. Now to do that, I'm going to cut the end. Then I'm going to bring a knife just around the side, and I just want to get nice big pieces of the zest right off. I want to try to leave as much of that white on, and I don't want to get any of the juice into here. High acidic brews don't always work. They don't always taste great. What we are going to do is, since this is an experimental recipe, when I'm done, when this ferments and it's completely out of primary and we put it into secondary, we are going to taste it. If at that point we want more heat, we're going to add more peppers. If we want more citrus, we're going to add more citrus. If we need it to be sweeter, we'll figure something out. But I'm going to go ahead and cut all of this. I don't think you need to watch me cut every piece of fruit. And then we'll go on to the peppers. Okay, so as you can see, I got a bunch of my zest into the carboy. I'm using a wide mouth carboy for this one. I don't know if I mentioned it. You can use the other kind with the slim neck. I figured because we have large things in this one, and I don't really know how they're going to react once I get brewing, having access is just nice. It also makes it a lot easier to put everything in when it's a wide mouth. As you can see, nice big space. I could pour the sugar directly in. Just seemed easier. Did I do a perfect job? Absolutely not. Definitely got a little bit too much white in at some points. Definitely cut into the flesh at some points. You know what? That's okay. Is it always going to be perfect every single time? Absolutely not. But we learn, we brew, we make cool stuff, and then we keep going. Next, we're going to handle our peppers. As I said, this is the part where it's really going to go into your preference. This is the Venom in my Wyvern Venom. It's going to give it a nice heat. I'm going to use two long red chili peppers. If you like things super spicy, you can go to town with this. If you like things less spicy, start off with 2. If it's not hot enough when you go into secondary, you could heat it up a little bit more. You could add more peppers and bring more heat into it. This is just a nice safety net, and it's what I recommend doing. Additionally, I got a pair of vinyl gloves. Once you cut into these, there's a lot of capsaicin inside these peppers, inside the seeds. It's going to get on your hands. Then everything you touch after that, you're going to be putting basically pepper juice on. And if you get it in your eyes, it's really not a good time. So we're going to put gloves on, and then I'm going to show you how I'm going to cut this. Let's go. Okay, the scary part's over. Everything's cut up in the carboy, and we don't need the knife anymore. The next thing we're going to add is going to be the sugar. As I said, we're just using for today white granulated sugar. And how much are we going to use? We're going to use 3 pounds. Now I want to pause for a second and just say, most of the time, I know my last couple of videos was 3 pounds of this or 3 pounds of that. 3 is not the magic number for honey or sugar and most wines or meads. I actually normally go 2.5 to start, and then I see where it ends up. The only things in here are water and tea. That's really my only liquids. Most fruit juices and most fruits have sugar in them. So there's already some sugar in it. So you go a little bit lower so that you don't have this super high, sugary, high gravity liquid. Since this is just water, a little bit of tea, and sugar, I'm going to add more sugar to make up for that. I also recommend using a scale for this. I'm going to eyeball it, and I'm okay with that. It looks like it's more than it is because of all the stuff on the bottom. So I'm using the bag as like a judgment. That's enough. Alright. We'll see. If we have to bring the gravity up a little bit towards the end, we'll bring the gravity up towards the end. Next thing we're going to add is our water and our tea. I left the water on the other side of the room, so I'm going to add the tea, grab the water, and meet you back. And through magic, we are back. So I'm going to add water about halfway up the side. I'm going to put my cap on, cover the hole, make sure of that, and then just shake it away. So what I'm doing here is, one, dissolving the sugar into the liquid. Two, I'm getting a lot of oxygen into the liquid. In order for the yeast to get going, they are going to need oxygen. So for the first day or so it's in here, if you feel like shaking it, stirring it, feel free to do so. Once the yeast are full swing and doing their thing, you don't want any oxygen getting in here, because it might start to convert your alcohol to vinegar. That's not a good time, and that's not why we're doing this. But that looks good. It's an interesting color, and I'm actually really curious to see what the final color is going to be. I'm guessing it's either going to be reddish or brownish, but we'll find out. We're going to add a little bit more water. We want to save some room for the yeast. You know what? At this point, I'm going to take a reading. And dried cranberries. So I'll go ahead and give them a rough chop. You don't got to get too crazy with it. You just want to penetrate the, it's not really a shell, the skin of the cranberry. When it's dried, it's really hard for the yeast to get through it. And you kind of want to just help them out. That goes right in. These aren't really a flavorant. These are more of, I don't want to say nutrient, but they're kind of something to give the yeast a little something extra. Kind of like eating their Wheaties in the morning. It's going to help them create a stronger colony. It's going to help them work a little bit faster. It's not really going to add any flavor. You might taste a little bit. It might come through. There might be some notes of cranberry. If you hate cranberries, you can use raisins. If you hate raisins, or you don't have any raisins and you don't have any cranberries, it's a skippable step. It's just something I like to do. Now, as I say, there's a lot of equipment you can choose to get to make this more sciencey or to make this more complicated, or you can keep it as simple as you want. I like to keep things on the simpler side, but I will not ever advise to skip this. This is a hydrometer. It's probably the only piece of equipment that I'm like, if you don't have it, you just can't. And you can. Problem is that if anything doesn't happen or anything goes wrong, or even when it is finished, you won't know unless you take a reading to see where you're at. Can you get by without it? If you absolutely are that stubborn and you just don't want to do it, you can get by, and you'll have an alcoholic product. You won't know how much alcohol, but you'll have an alcoholic product. Now I'm trying to get the turkey baster below the cap of floating citrus and peppers. I don't think I'll suck anything up. And if I did, it wouldn't be a big deal anyway. Yeah, see, I got a couple seeds. I don't think that's going to mess anything up. Now we're going to take a reading. Alright, so it looks like it's 1.120, which I believe is going to be 15%-ish, but I'll put the number up after I calculate it. And that's good. That means that if this goes to, let's say, 13%, we'll have a little bit of sweetness in it. If it does hit 15%, we'll have to back sweeten, and that's fine too. We can also step feed it a little bit in secondary and see if it does come up a little bit more than that. Our wine yeast has a 16% tolerance, I think. However, the yeast will change a little bit over time, and they might get stronger. They might be able to go a little bit higher. Or, it's a little bit of an older packet of yeast. Maybe they can't go that high anymore. So, that's the fun of fermentation. We get to play around a little bit and see what we get at the end. That's all the steps. This is now a must. I'm going to add the yeast, cap it off. Before anything else, this is an airlock. What this is going to do, and it's a little full for my liking, so I'm just going to empty a little bit out. There we go. Now the lines are even. As the yeast get going, they're going to push pressure up. All the gases coming off of the liquid are going to come up. This is going to allow them to escape through, but it's also not going to allow anything to come back into the brew. So anything that's in the air, any air itself, any pesky critters that might want to get in here, just can't. This is going to prevent that. This is super inexpensive. It's a really good tool to invest in. Now there's other ways to do it, and you do whatever your heart desires. You do whatever your comfort level is. But for now, we're going to pitch the yeast. Put a cap on. Put in the airlock, which I highly recommend you do. And that's going to be our Wyvern Venom. I want you to also note that there is a little bit of headroom that's intentional. This is going to froth up a little bit. This is going to create a crescent line around the top. That's okay. You want to leave a little bit of headroom because you want it to be able to do stuff. You want the gases to be able to go somewhere. If you fill this all the way to the brim, it's either going to force its way through the airlock and create a mess, or it's going to pop. And you don't want to make a bottle bomb. That's not what you're trying to do here. You're just trying to have a good time and make a tasty liquid. Alright, I'm going to meet you guys for the final facts. Final thoughts. Final facts. This is going to be a really exciting wine. I think it's going to be super tasty. I think it's going to have some heat, some sweetness, some citrus notes. This is my Wyvern Venom. This is the first time I'm attempting to make this one. So you're going to learn as I learn. I thought it was a good recipe to try out on here because it shows you guys that not every recipe has to be exact. It doesn't have to be to the T. We're not brewing because we want to read a recipe, follow that recipe, make somebody else's product. We want to make our own stuff. We want to experiment with our own flavors. This is going to show us a few tips and tricks on how to do that. And I think learning can never be a bad thing. We're going to let this sit for anywhere between 2 weeks and 1 month. There's a lot of stuff floating up there. So if it looks like it's starting to get dry, or I just don't like the way it's looking, I'm going to rack it a little bit earlier. And that's fine. We could do that. If it looks like everything is great, I'm just going to let it be. Once we hit secondary, so after I rack this and it goes into its next vessel, we're going to taste it, we're going to see where it's at, and we're going to make some decisions. I don't know what those decisions are just yet, but stick around and maybe you'll learn some other stuff or see something exciting. But that's really all I got for this one. This is our citrus chili wine, our Wyvern Venom, and I had a great time making it with you guys. So until next time, cheers.